Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys Podcast. I'm your host, Michael, and with me as always, my fellow Carolina compatriot over there, Andy. How's it going, bud?
It's going so good. I had some Southern cooking this week, Michael. It's good.
That Southern cooking is always good. It's always good to have some leftovers in the fridge as well.
Oh, I've been living off of them.
Right?
It's weighing me down now.
Right. Let's focus on all the good things about Carolina before we get into this piece of shit that also came from one of the Carolinas. You know what I'm saying? But guys, we're glad you could join us today. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment below with your best Alec Murdaugh insult. We would appreciate that very much. This week, we're going to be talking about a case that has been sizzling on our back burner for some time. Like some bacon. Ever since the first headlines started coming out back in 2021. Now, we did discuss parts of it briefly on Strange Shorts a few times last year, but we think that we finally come to a point in the case where we can tell you guys the full story. That's what we like to do here at TCG. We don't like giving these half stories or having to go back and be like, okay, now we look like idiots because we jumped the gun on this case before all the information came out. But today, we're going to be diving into the case that's been happening in our own backyard down in South Carolina. The twisted tale of Alec Murdaugh and his twisted family. Well, some of them. The former South Carolina state prosecutor, who comes from a line of prominent attorneys, has been at the center of multiple investigations going back to February of 2019, with what originally appeared as a possible targeted hit on a local lawyer's family quickly spiraled into the twisting case that's come to be dubbed the Murdaugh Murders.
It sounds like it sounded like a day. It just sounded like an old, Matlock episode or something. Like it would be like like a series on Matlock or Murder, She Wrote.
So much about this case does because it's such an old family name. Too. You know, it's just steeped in Southern history and culture, and everyone's heard of Murdaugh. You know what I mean? Isn't that Daredevil's real name?
Yeah, Matt Murdaugh.
Yeah. So, but yeah. But no, these guys are not the vigilante type. They're more of the villain type.
They're more of the kingpin type.
They're more of the kingpin type.
Yeah, how about that?
Exactly. With multiple bodies piling up and millions of dollars going missing over the years, the family that was once held in very high regard has now turned into a shining example of how recklessness and greed can corrupt even those whose job it is to uphold the law. Corrupt lawyers, Andy, you got to be freaking kidding me, bro.
Corrupt lawmakers?
Corrupt law
officials?
Dude, you're living in some other world, Andy. You're making this stuff up.
Oh, my God. And especially in a small southern town, there's never been a bit of corruption in one of those.
Never. But let's just see, okay, Andy? Let's just see. Let's take a crack at this Carolina clusterfuck and see what's going on, all right?
Yeah, okay. Let's take a swing at this.
All right. Bless your heart, Andy. Now, could you be a dear and roll that intro for me?
I will. I swear to God, I will.
Meet the Murdaughs, they used to be millionaires. Now they're in the ground or in the pen, except for Busteries in the wind. Meet the Murdaughs.
All right, guys, so let's start this case off learning a little bit about Alec Murdaugh and his family's long history with the law and in South Carolina, specifically in Hampton County. Now, you want to talk about generational wealth and power? This right here is a prime example. Alec Murdaugh's family has been deeply ingrained in the South Carolina legal system since 1910, when Alec's great-grandfather, Randolph Murdaugh Sr., founded his law office in Hampton County, an office that would be passed down through the Murdaugh family for the last 100 years.
That's quite a little inheritance to get there, isn't it?
It is, but it's their political position that they held, the solicitor.
Yeah.
That just strikes me as odd. Like, why is that not an elected official?
I think it kind of is, but it's not supposed to be a single family for the longest time.
Yeah, for 100 years.
Yeah,
But from 1920 to 2006, Randolph, his son, and his grandson, Alec's father, would all serve as the state prosecutor for South Carolina's 14th Circuit Court, making their law dynasty the longest family stretch in U.S. history. I just don't think this happens in a big city. It's just not going to.
It can't. Once you start getting into a metropolitan area like that, you're not going to be able to keep a family in power that long.
Absolutely not. For 86 years straight, a Murdaugh was the state's prosecutor for the area around Hampton County. No joke. While eventually the state would prohibit lawyers from serving as a state prosecutor and a private attorney, Alec Murdaugh would continue to volunteer prosecutors who were working with his father, all while continuing to practice law out of the family's law firm, which, up until recent events, was titled Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Eltsroth, and Detrick. Pumpt. I like to call it pumped.
I kept saying
like that?
I kept saying pimped. I was just like PAMPD pimped.
But only now, of course, Murdaugh has been removed, and it's just the Parker Law Group. Actually, they removed almost everybody. Why does Parker just get to stay?
Well, because if it was Peter Parker, then it would be Spider-Man's law firm.
That's true. That's
everybody off.
That's so weird.
Spider-Man doesn't practice law. He just enforces the law.
That's right. Friendly neighborhood Spider-Man down there in the Hamptons.
Yes, Charleston style Spider-Man.
Yeah,
just blessing everybody's heart as he whipped by.
Yeah, I could see the confusion there. But guys, let's go into a little history about Alec Murdaugh. He was born in May of 1967 and would stay true to the family tradition of studying law at the University of South Carolina. Go Gamecocks, right? It was there that he met his future wife, Maggie Branstetter. The couple would go on to marry in 1993 and have 2 sons together, Buster and Paul. What's Buster's real name, man? I couldn't find that anywhere.
It is Buster.
It's on his birth certificate. It's Buster.
His name is Buster, and he's the firstborn. Like, how do you look at your first... That looks like a Buster to me.
Looks like a Buster to me.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess they just wanted a completely different name. I don't know. It sounds like a baseball name from like the 40s. You know what I'm saying? Oh. It's all Buster McGee on the mound, and he's... Yeah.
All I could think of was Arrested Development. I was just like, you got the one son who's destined to inherit the law firm, and then you got Buster.
When was he born? But the Murdaugh family would live in abundance for the next almost 30 years, spending their time between a lavish beach house, multiple private islands, and a sprawling 1,700-acre area of land that had a ranch-style house built on it. That estate was amazing.
Oh, yeah,
I must say.
Estate, I think it was called.
There is some gorgeous farmland out in South Carolina. Just flat, sprawling, open meadows and then woods surrounded them. It's gorgeous. However, the family also had a darker side filled with greed and recklessness. Hence, they're the topic of today's show. Both Alec and his sons were accused of struggling with substance abuse and excessive drinking. After years of extravagant spending and lavish lifestyles, Alec attracted federal attention for various financial crimes such as fraud, embezzlement, and multiple attempts at insurance scams. Now, these alleged crimes, amounting to an estimated $8.5 million stolen, would unfortunately end with multiple homicides.
Yeah, once you start getting that much money missing, bodies start piling up.
Apparently. So let's talk about these murders, shall we, Andy?
I think we got a few to go through.
We do. So, with a little background out of the way on Alec and his family's law dynasty, let's start talking about some of these bodies that started popping up around the Murdaugh clan. We're going to start back in 2015 with the death of Stephen Smith, the first of several deaths surrounding Alec Murdaugh, but possibly the last one that he'll be connected to. On July 8, 2015, Stephen, a 19-year-old Hampton student, called his mother to let her know that he was running out of fuel. Unfortunately, that was the last anyone ever heard from Stephen Smith. His body was discovered lying on the road, several miles away from his vehicle. Stephen had suffered severe blunt force trauma, and his mother had stated that his body was sprawled out in the road like a snow angel. Highway patrol authorities initially presumed Stephen to be the victim of a hit and run, thinking perhaps after walking away from his car to fetch gas, he was struck by another driver who then fled the scene. Surprisingly, the case was closed, ignoring observations from the police that indicated that Stephen's death was no accident, but a homicide. When the word got out that the crime scene appeared to be arranged, rumors started flying.
As they do in a small southern town.
Yes, they do.
The fastest way tea gets spilled.
More than rumors. If you watch the documentary on HBO, it is far more than rumors. Literally everyone questioned knew who did this.
Yeah.
Rumors that Smith was allegedly in a romantic relationship with Alec Murdaugh's eldest son, Buster, were flying all over the place. People in the town quickly began to wonder if Stephen might have fallen victim to a hate crime or that the Murdaugh family was somehow involved in his death. But we'll dissect this a little more later. You want to move on to suspicious death number 2, Andy?
Hey, listen, it's only 2 suspicious deaths so far. Okay,
is that it?
Every family's got like 2 of those, right?
We'll
talk later.
Okay. Andy, you're about to be featured on an episode. We got to get some of your relatives in here for interviews. But on February 2nd, 2018, while working at the Murdaugh's vast ranch property, Gloria Satterfield, the Murdaugh's housekeeper, sustained a very serious head injury. Tragically, Gloria passed away on February 26th due to multiple complications, including a stroke, and the circumstances surrounding her death remain uncertain but very suspicious. The questions began after it came out that there was never a report made to the local coroner, nor was there an autopsy. Oddly enough, authorities later described her death as both natural and accidental. So, take that as what you will, Andy. I guess accidents are natural things. They do occur naturally.
I mean, if we're getting philosophical here, I guess, but not really the place for this, coroner.
No, not really the place for it at all. The circumstances surrounding Satterfield's death become even more suspicious later when Alec Murdaugh, along with banker Chad Westendorf and attorney Corey Fleming, conspired to collect Satterfield's $4.3 million insurance policy all for themselves. Their scheme involved deceiving Gloria's sons and diverting the entire policy payout to Alec through a fake business that he set up called Forge. Guys, I highly recommend, if you haven't watched the HBO series, watch that because there is an episode that covers this. It's only a 3-episode series, but this whole event is covered in the episode and it explains it in such detail. And just the sneakiness, the heartlessness for him to take advantage of Gloria's sons at this time is unbelievable. But the way he did it, even this Forge account, everything was done on purpose. This man has been a white-collar criminal for a long time.
Yeah, you don't hold a family law dynasty for 83 years without learning a few cons along the way.
You got that right. Now, in order for the scam to work, Alec convinced the Satterfield boys to file a lawsuit against himself, against Alec, with the expectation of receiving a large payout from the insurance company. But like all good con men, Alec was going to keep all the money for himself, of course. Alec's behavior following her death became increasingly suspicious, as he not only got there before EMTs on the scene, but he also claimed to have heard Gloria blaming her fall on his dogs, despite her later contradicting this statement, claiming that she had no knowledge of what actually happened.
I mean, that's one of the few questioning things. It's like, yes, if you do have a serious head injury, you may wake up and say, I think I tripped over the dogs. And then you wake up a few hours later and you might not remember. So that's the only questionable thing. But still, it's like, how'd you beat EMTs there? Why'd you know to be there before EMTs?
Also, Andy, she didn't say anything about the dogs. The reason this whole dog story came up was actually at the funeral. He approached her sons at the funeral and gave them, or tried to give them, his credit card. And said, here, I want to pay for the expenses. I want to pay for the funeral. It happened on my property. I'm taking responsibility. They were my dogs. And the boys are like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, well, she tripped over my dogs. My dog's running around. That is where that alibi was established. That simply, just that casual, just let me pay for it. It was my dogs.
Oh, obviously. Well, there you go. You just took blame for it. So good on you, con man.
Yeah, your dogs. But luckily, in the end, though, Gloria's sons successfully reclaimed over $6.5 million through subsequent legal proceedings. So they got theirs in the end. Also, authorities were granted permission in June of 2022 to exhume Satterfield's remains. And as far as we know, they're still investigating her death. Let's jump ahead now to 2019, the death of Mallerie Beach. On the evening of February 24th, 2019, a group of friends, including the then 19-year-old Paul Murdaugh, were on their way back to the Murdaugh estate after a night of binge drinking. They were all riding in Murdaugh's boat, and he insisted on driving, even though being just piss drunk. He was steering the boat recklessly, and eventually Paul collided with the Archers Creek Bridge, one of the big pillars that supported the bridge. On impact, several of the passengers were thrown from the boat, notably 19-year-old Mallerie Beach. The crash would claim the life of the 19-year-old, and it would take authorities a week to locate and retrieve Mallory's body, which was 5 miles down the river from the crash spot. And when arriving at the hospital, Paul was still intoxicated and uncooperative. Yet, despite this, authorities never recorded his intoxication levels for some reason. But then Big Daddy Alex showed up and started threatening and trying to persuade the remaining witnesses. With Alec trying to clear his family name, one witness went so far as to say the whole situation started to feel like a weird, corny teen drama.
I don't want to wait for my life. Yeah, just kept saying it's like a One Tree Hill episode. What is happening here?
Exactly. But I mean, in all honesty, though, this is an absolute nightmare. I think that was kind of a trauma response to try to make a joke about that at that time. But this is a horrific scene.
I do think
the documentary actually opens with this, and it's horrifying.
I do feel like that's probably what how those teenagers kind of felt, though, were like sitting there in like an emergency room and just looking around, like seeing this like fancy lawyer who's like the big guy in your town come in and start telling you what it's like. Are we on an episode of Dawson's Creek? What is?
Yeah.
Oh my God! What happened,
dude? It's pretty insane. And then there is so much body cam footage from the police who responded to the actual boat accident. There's so much audio of the kids who were on the boat. I say kids, but some of them were 21. Some of them are actually drinking age. But all in all, in 2019, Paul faced 3 felony charges for operating a boat under the influence, to which he entered a plea of not guilty, of course. The entire Murdaugh family would come under the microscope, though, because of Mallory's death, with her family claiming Alec, his brother, and his sons had used their power and influence to try and cover up the true cause of their daughter's death. A prime example of that power was used to delay the trial of Paul Murdaugh as long as possible, in hopes of having the case dismissed. However, in June of 2021, with the court date approaching and Paul set to appear at the trial for Mallorie Beach's death, the entire case was about to be turned on its head. And as 2021 slowly crept along for the Murdaughs, the family tension was growing. Maggie, Alec's wife of 30 years, was living separately from her husband and reportedly speaking to a divorce attorney. With Alex mounting legal troubles, his house of cards was about to crumble. I just had to get a House of Cards reference in there, Andy.
Oh, it did feel like a very Frank Underwood.
It's South Carolina, too. It's
I know.
Come on, man.
That ring snap just dun dun.
Seriously. So let's get into the double murder that shocked Hampton County to its core. On June 7th, 2021, Alec Murdaugh lured Maggie out to the family's ranch house. At that time, Maggie had messaged a friend about Alec's behavior. Allegedly, she wrote, "He's up to something." When she got to the ranch house, Maggie saw her son Paul near the family dog kennels. And suddenly, both of them were violently attacked, with Maggie suffering wounds from an assault rifle and Paul falling victim to a shotgun blast to the head. Alec, who apparently arrived on the scene just after the attack, as he usually does, called 911 to report the deaths of his wife and son. After the news of the murders broke, he quickly became a prime suspect, and as an extra twist of the knife for Alec, 3 days later, his father, Randolph III, passed away as well.
That was probably going to be his lifeline there. He was going to have to run to his daddy to be like, Dad, I don't know what to do.
He lost his security blanket. He lost the family protector. They called him Handsome. That's so weird. Yeah, that was like his nickname. They also said that in the documentary as well.
Ugh.
Yeah, Randolph, they called him Handsome.
Gross.
Yeah, he was like in everybody's phone as that and stuff. It's like a nickname. But just a few weeks after the murders of his wife and son, the police would reopen the investigation into the death of Stephen Smith, the young man who was killed in this supposed hit and run. Apparently, in their digging into the murders of Paul and Maggie, they found evidence that changed the way that they initially viewed Stephen's death. Also, on September 3rd, 2021, Alec Murdaugh would quietly resign from the law firm his family built after being confronted by his partners regarding his embezzlement activities. Although this information wouldn't be made public until a few days afterwards, because the very next day, on September 4th, 2021, a 911 operator would receive a very odd phone call from Alex Murdaugh. According to him, Alex claimed that he was changing a flat tire on his car when a passerby stopped to provide assistance. Instead of lending a helping hand, though, they just shot him in the head.
Ah.
You know how that happens, Andy.
Oh, the Good Samaritan story, right?
Something like that.
Need help with that flat tire?
Well, he's a Samaritan.
Bang.
But although evidence indicated that Alex had indeed suffered a gunshot wound to his head, they were still very skeptical of the story, as they should be. And it didn't take long for police to convince Alec to tell them what actually happened to him on that day. So, new story here, Andy, okay? Probably also bullshit.
All right, remix.
But new story. Alex revealed on September 14th his true evil plan, which was setting up an event where his friend would shoot and kill him. Okay? Therefore, allowing Buster, his oldest son and surviving son, to claim the substantial $10 million life insurance policy that he had on himself. The authorities arrested Murdaugh and his partner in crime, Curtis Smith, who was Alex's drug dealer as well as his former client.
I'm sure he had a little bit of leverage under Curtis Smith there, too. So it's like,
oh,
you
yeah.
do this for me, I think you're probably going to get a little bit of this, too. You
Oh,
scratch my back, and shoot me, and you get a little...
Curtis Smith seemed like his connect to the underworld. He was kind of the guy that got his hands dirty for him. Who knows how many things this guy was involved in.
His goon, so to speak.
Yeah, right. But Smith himself faced charges of illegal assisted suicide, while both individuals were accused of conspiring to commit insurance fraud. Consequently, Alex's law license was promptly suspended, leading to his disbarment.
Oh, about time.
It is about time. Alex was able to post his bond, though, and voluntarily admitted himself into a rehabilitation center for what he claimed was years of opioid abuse. I think he's just trying to gain, some sympathy here.
He's trying to play
He's playing the sympathy card. He's like, I'm just a human. I was under the influence.
I wasn't thinking clearly. I'm an addict. I'm struggling. Yeah.
Yeah. However, upon his release from the facility, he was apprehended for engaging in felony fraud pertaining to the Gloria Satterfield case. In this instance, his request for bail was rejected completely, and any assets he possessed were frozen.
It's a great way to
You
leave
stuck
a rehab
now.
clinic. It's like, ding, 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 you're clear. Put these handcuffs on. What? Oh, shit.
One prison to the next, my friend.
Oh, damn it.
Yep, that's where he belongs. At this point, the Murdaugh case had gained national attention and headlines were popping up daily with theories and accusations against Alec and his family. Alec was being held on the fraud charges, and the entire time he was behind bars, further allegations and charges were being found and about to be brought against him. From November 2021 to July of 2022, Alex Murdaugh and his co-conspirators faced dozens of indictments. Additionally, allegations from the community concerning the family's misuse of their influence persisted on social media and in the local news. He couldn't get away from it anywhere. After gaining mainstream attention through multiple podcasts, YouTube videos, and documentaries, and over a year of investigating the murders, Alex Murdaugh was finally indicted for the killings of both his wife Maggie and his youngest son Paul on July 14th of 2022. However, it seems that Alec had no intention of making this easy on anybody. And on July 20th of 2022, he entered a plea of not guilty, marking the initiation of a series of complicated and very frustrating court proceedings. And his trial would finally begin on January 23rd, 2023.
I really thought he was. I think he really was going to thinking he was going to be able to rely on his abilities as a lawyer.
He did.
As a prosecutor, he was going to be able to work this system, and like he was going to be able to defend himself. So I just love, like, spoiler, when the judge just turns around, he's like, "You would never. How did you ever win a case?"
Well, I think denying him bail and making it so out of reach. But because I think later when he's finally arrested, his bail is set at like $7 million.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So like he doesn't ever get to be free again. But I think by doing this, they've kind of taken away his main method, which was buy time. Mm-hmm. It was like, let's see how long we can delay this. Let's delay it. Because, the further you get away from a case, the less heart-wrenching it is.
And the less clear the memories are.
The
more you can say, this was so long ago. Are you sure you're remembering this right? Yeah.
And in the meantime, you have a better chance to game plan and gather evidence and figure out what you're going to do, right?
Yep.
And in this instance, he had no time.
Nope, they wouldn't give it to him this time.
No, he could not. He couldn't talk to any co-conspirators, and other people were coming forward too. But guys, a large amount of the evidence showcased by the prosecution may have been heavily circumstantial, yet it consistently captivated the jury and all the onlookers. However, bombshell evidence would finally be revealed by the prosecution that would seal the fate of Alex Murdaugh forever. A previously unseen cell phone recording taken from Paul's phone that captured the moments shortly before his death.
Bum, bum, bum.
Dude, this is so brilliant.
It's just that Law and Order closing.
Just let you know, man, you're always on footage, man. But in this footage, Paul can be seen playfully interacting with one of the dogs while at the kennels. But in the background of the video, there are two other distinctive voices that are calling out. One is his mom, Maggie, and the other is their killer, his father, Alec Murdaugh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. Alec would try to take the stand and defend himself against the damning evidence, telling the court in his previous claim that he hadn't been down to the dog kennels that day, which was a lie, and he'd only returned to the house briefly before Maggie and Paul were shot.
Yeah, he was saying originally, I was never even at the house.
He was never
I just
there.
Showed up there right and found the bodies, and then he's like, I was there a little bit before that, and I went down and I went down to the kennels, but then I went back and like,
Right.
You forgot all that the first time?
Forgot all that, man. Yeah, there was no denying that this was a flimsy excuse, that he was just trying to make up on the spot, and both the judge and the jury could see right through his freaking lies. And finally, on March 2nd, 2023, after only deliberating for less than 2 hours, the jury would find him guilty on both charges for the murder of his wife and their son, Paul. Alec Murdaugh was given 2 consecutive life sentences, and he's been serving his sentence in the Kirkland Correctional Institution in Columbia, South Carolina.
It's a maximum security prison, by the way. I just imagine the longtime corrupt state prosecutor from South Carolina in a maximum security South Carolina. He's fucked.
Yeah.
You're fucked, dude.
Yeah.
I've seen Reacher. You're fucked.
Right? And all the people that he's tied to and the murders that he's tied to, like, that's good enough for criminals. They're like, good enough.
Yeah, good enough.
Good enough. So now with Murdaugh behind bars, there have still been ongoing investigations into the decades of financial crimes that he and his family have been a part of, along with reopening the investigations of Stephen Smith and digging further into the death of Gloria Satterfield, with Stephen's body even being exhumed in 2023 for further examinations, and his death now being treated as a murder instead of a hit and run. And just recently, Alec Murdaugh accepted a plea deal in regards to some of the numerous fraud and financial crimes that he'd been accused of, only adding more time to his 2 consecutive life sentences. It's like, who cares at this point, right?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, whatever. Just you add an asterisk. Go ahead.
Yeah. And one of the most aggravating things about this is that his surviving son, Buster, who is still free, by the way, is still denying any involvement in any of the Murdaugh crimes, especially the Stephen Smith crime.
Yeah, he feels like he can distance himself from Paul and Maggie, but they're like, yeah, we're not really concerned about that. He's like, but I didn't... Shit.
Yeah, we're more concerned about the Stephen one, the person that you were rumored to be involved with.
Yeah, the one that you're directly connected to. He's like, why are we still talking about that, right?
Right? Ooh, we don't want to talk about this. But yeah, Buster is still doing interviews now. There's all types of videos on YouTube and whatnot because if you watch the documentary, I think it was made in 2021 or early 2022. So there has been quite a bit of stuff come out since the documentary. So, it's not the full story, but it's excellent insight into each of these main murders that the Murdaughs were most absolutely involved in. But guys, that's it. That's the case. That's what we know so far about Alec Murdaugh. Shit, I think anything else that comes out in the future will probably just be like white collar crime. I think we've pretty much
that, and
hopefully
Buster gets connected to Stephen Smith. That's the one real thing they're trying to connect.
Yeah.
And the possibility of anything connected to Gloria Satterfield, but that's even still more of the financial crime about that.
Yeah,
her death very well could have just been an accident. And they just quickly tried to cover it up and get the money.
But check this out, dude. With her death, have you heard the 911 calls when she was killed?
Yeah.
Because, yes, Alex showed up, but, Maggie and Paul were there as well. Mm-hmm. And Maggie called 911, and she is extremely, she just sounds so agitated at the 911 operator because they're asking questions. And then at some point in time, she puts Paul on the phone, and he's even worse. He's just like, lady, what's with all the questions? Just send somebody out here. And she's like, someone is coming out there. What I'm asking you is not hurting anything.
Yeah, they're already on the way.
Yeah, they're already on the way.
Filling in the paperwork.
Exactly. I'm just trying to get you to fumble into committing.
I'm just trying to get you to tell me that you did this. I'm sorry, what? I mean...
Exactly.
But no, yeah, you can very much hear that. I don't want to say that entitled attitude, but just that generational power and wealth that lady, I told you to do something. Why aren't you doing it?
Yeah.
I'm calling you. They just have that attitude and that,
For real. And if I was able to find this stuff, guys, I probably put it in the episode if I was able to get it. I never know. I always look that stuff up in post as far as, what we can have the rights to, what could get demonetized on YouTube or whatever. But if I am able to find it, it most likely will not be on the YouTube video. If you guys are watching in video form, you might want to check it out in podcast form, and we'll have all the audio that we can find in there, all the 911 calls, because they are very important. I think so, especially in the Gloria Satterfield case. Hearing the way Maggie and Paul, it's like an inconvenience. It's like there's somebody cutting the catalytic converter off their car. That's the way they're talking about it. It's not.
It's almost
it's
like
not a big crime.
Control. Can you come get this thing out of my yard? Come
exactly.
on, I called you. This is inconveniencing me. I don't want to deal with this. Come deal with this.
Exactly. But guys, thank you for listening. And if you are on YouTube, please smash that subscribe button before you head out of here to go to subscribe on the podcast platform. You can also check us out on Patreon. A yearly membership to Patreon would be a great gift for somebody. Right? Don't you think?
I think it's a pretty good membership too. I think it's a good Christmas. Christmas gift.
Pretty good Christmas gift.
Look how much time I've just given you.
I'm
giving you hundreds of hours of entertainment.
Right?
Are you not entertained?
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Patreon.com/truecrime, guys. We talk about it all the time, guys, but it is the main way to support the show. If you can, there is a link right below here. We are still doing 7-day free trials on the $2 tier. If you guys would like to check that out, that is available until January 1st. January 1st, we will no longer have the free trials. So get them while they last, guys, through this holiday season, because Happy New Year, you got to pay now.
Welcome to the future.
Sorry, guys. But we understand obviously if you guys have to leave your membership, no big deal. But we thank you for supporting the show. We thank you for listening. Tell your friends. We're on social media at True Crime Guys. Make sure you give us a follow on there, where we share clips from every single episode, so you guys will always be up to date on what's coming out when and all that good stuff. Also, check us out on Spotify. As an artist, True Crime Guys, we have multiple music albums out. We got Truths and Tragedies, as well as Killer Mixtape and a single out there and some more in the works. So you guys can go listen. If you enjoy some of the intro music that we do here at True Crime Guys, you guys can listen to some of our favorite tracks from there and fan favorites, wherever you listen to music, actually.
Yeah, we're trying to make that album go platinum. Let's go.
That's right. That's right.
Coming for
All
you,
right.
Bieber. Let's go.
All right, guys. Well, until then, just keep on creeping. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Meet the Murdaughs, they ain't going nowhere. They've been in the law for 100 years, working poor folks to sweat and tears. Meet the Murdaughs, when you do, try not to stare. South Carolina royalty, just as cruel as they can be. Meet the Murdaughs, it's a big old family affair. Or at least that's how it used to be before Alec pruned the family tree. Meet the Murdaughs, they used to